Hello, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the Deidre Reigel Hope and Healing Radio Show. This is no ordinary podcast. This production has heart and soul, healing and wisdom, artists and authors. Deidre has spent her entire life promoting people, projects, and products that further hope and healing. She has also been a positive force in the entertainment industry as a vocalist, performer, musician, composer, conductor, author, and healer. You will be in good hands spending this time with her and her guests as they will guide you into another space where you can relax and feel their positive energy. Thank you for joining us. And now, here is the amazing Deidre Reigel with her special guest.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to part 2 of the New Beginnings series. Today's guest is a new friend of mine. His name is Andrew Appel, and he comes by way of reference from our dear mutual friend, Lynn Walker. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Andrew and what he does before we engage in our wonderful conversation today. Andrew is the founder and the creator of Collective Online Healing. And that is quite a new thing, and I'm very excited about it. I have actually been a participant twice, and I have found it to be so incredibly wonderful that I am so delighted to share his information with you today. So Collective Online Healing is not about any one person in particular. It's really about all of us working together to create something new. But, of course, it had to be started by someone, and that someone, as I said, is Andrew Appel. Now, Andrew has been studying the potential of various healing modalities since 1994 and has worked with thousands of people and many gifted healers from around the world during this time. He has been particularly interested in large group healing for the past 7 years, and to date has also hosted over 150 in-person group healing events in New York City. Now, what's happening for Andrew right now, as is happening all over the world, is we're not necessarily meeting in person, but we are returning to our idea of a collective mind, and we're using our technology to do that. And, of course, today's conference, today's interview is being supported by technology. So all of that said, I would like very much to welcome Andrew to the show. Welcome, Andrew Appel.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Oh, it's just so wonderful to have you here as well, Andrew. So, I said that I have been part of the process here now twice, and I want to say to you again how important this has been for me in my own healing process. And what I loved about it was I could personalize it. So I really want to give a good shout out to start our interview with saying how much I've really enjoyed it. Now, could you tell our listeners how the process works?
Sure. The main premise of our group is that we are all healers. Everyone has healing ability, just like any other ability, albeit to varying degrees: athletic ability, artistic ability, intellect. Not everyone's going to be Michael Jordan or Picasso or Einstein, but we all have every ability to a certain degree, and it's the same thing with healing abilities. And as far as my experience goes, every person can develop their healing ability to the extent of their innate capacities. But what we do in Collective Online Healing is we pool the collective healing energy of everyone in attendance, and that creates something much greater than the sum of its parts. And that's usually felt by an energy that floods into the person's body or floods into the room while they're doing, while we're doing the process. I would say generally, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, right, that my experience has proven this, but Andrew, please continue.
Yeah, so basically there's 3 levels to our process. I kind of think of it almost like a sandwich, and the middle process is definitely our collective meditation. We do use specific music to help people slow their brain waves down, and in a sense we're creating what Joe Dispenza would call heart and brainwave coherence. So basically, my experience has been that most healing takes place in a slower brainwave state, in an alpha state or a theta state, or potentially even a delta brainwave state. And what I mean by that is a brainwave is defined by how many times per second the neurons and synapses in our brains are firing, and that is measured in hertz or Hz. So our normal waking state, the state that we're in right now as we're doing this interview, is a beta brainwave state, and that's generally speaking about 12 to 30 cycles per second, or 12 to 30 hertz. When you begin to slow your brain waves down, below beta is alpha brainwave state, which is 8 to 12 cycles per second. Below alpha is theta, which is 4 to 7 cycles per second. And below theta is delta, which is 0.5 to 4 cycles per second. And so as we begin to slow our brain waves down, we can enter a deeper state. It opens up, our healing abilities, our psychic abilities, our mediumistic abilities, and that's part of our process. The bottom part of our process is that we encourage people to collectively focus on emotions that carry a higher vibration. And in particular, we focus on forgiveness, acceptance and surrender, and sending love and light to the world. So we basically encourage everyone to just, even if it's just for the hour that we're doing this event, to send forgiveness to everyone and everything in the world, to send acceptance and surrender to everyone and everything in the world, and to send love, light, kindness, and compassion to everyone in the world. And then the top part of our process is what I would call a mediumistic aspect to the process. As we all know, several hundred years ago, most people thought the Earth was flat. Several hundred years ago, we also used to think that the Earth was the center of the solar system, and now we know that these things aren't true. There's a new idea emerging, and I'm certainly not the first one to suggest it, but there's a new idea emerging that says the majority of reality is taking place in the invisible world. And you don't necessarily have to believe that. I would encourage people to just chew on that, chew on the idea that the majority of reality is taking place in the invisible world. And you can almost prove that scientifically if you look at an atom under a microscope, any atom, it doesn't matter. You'll actually see that about 0.01% of an atom is actually physical matter, and 99.99% of that atom is something else. So if atoms, which make up everything we see, are actually only 0.01% physical matter, you could make an argument that we're looking at an optical illusion. We're looking at a world that seems 100% physical, but in reality is only 0.01% physical and 99.99% something else. And if that's true, and I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone, you can think about it, but if that's true, it would only seem logical that we should start to look to the invisible world to see how we can harness it to help us here in the physical. And I'm just going to share a quote by Nikola Tesla. And he said, "The day that science begins to study non-physical phenomenon, it will make more progress in 1 decade than in all the previous centuries of existence." So a medium is someone who has the ability to connect to the invisible world. And similar to healing ability, it's an ability that everyone has, albeit to varying degrees, and something that each of us can develop to the extent of our innate capacity. And generally speaking, there's 2 kinds of mediums. There's what's known as evidential mediums, people who receive information, people like the Long Island Medium or John Edward or James Van Praagh. And then the other form of healing mediumship is what I would call healing mediumship, which are those people who are able to use their mediumistic abilities specifically for the purposes of healing. And again, this is an ability that I believe every single person has, can be developed to their innate capacity. And, what we do in our events is we pool the collective energy of everyone. So yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I hope that sounded clear.
It did, Andrew. And what I really like is scientific explanation for all of us to think about. Having participated. And the remarkable thing for me was that I was in a room by myself here in California, and I knew that there were people joining in online all over. And I could actually feel the sense of everyone's aggregate energy. I can feel your sense of leadership in creating that space that you were holding for all of us. And, of course, you're very right about the music putting us into that delta brainwave state where a lot of us don't get a chance to go anymore, even in our sleep time, because I think we're dealing, all of us now, with so much anxiety and stress in our world. And even those of us who believe that, we're really aware of what's going on, we're still being affected by it. All of us are. And so with great compassion for all of us, I say that we really need to have those moments where we can get quiet and we can listen and perceive, as you say, the 99.99% of what we call the invisible world. And, of course, I'm a big Tesla fan, so, you're really striking me right there that this is the new frontier. And I love how you have offered the actual scientific explanation of how the process works. And, again, as I say, having experienced it myself, it was quite remarkable. And the other thing that I'd like to comment on before I ask you the next question I'd like to ask is the idea of mediumship. And again, we know that we're evolving as a race of beings. And a few hundred years ago, we were convinced the earth was flat, etc. So we're into a new frontier now. And this idea of, connecting with our loved ones who were alive at some point in time, and the idea that time is actually spiral rather than linear, is new territory for us. And I will speak personally here and say that as I have gone through my own healing process with my parents, who are both now deceased, that I have been able to retrieve information that, as you would put it in your your scientific explanation, your scientific studies, is in that 99.99% invisible, quote-unquote, field. And it has been information that has been life-transforming for me, where my heart and my mind could connect, and I could understand my parents and remember things in a completely different way, and that affect my life in this very moment. So I love this idea that you include mediumship. I know that some people might be a little concerned about, is that safe to do? And I'm here to tell you it is a remarkable aspect of the healing, and you are one of the few people, Andrew, whose work actually embraces this idea. And I believe you're very correct when you say that, we haven't used this a lot, and in fact, there's probably not even a lot of information out there about it, and I think it is the next step. So all of that said on my part, I'd like to ask you, how does this actually work online? Can you explain to that for somebody who will go onto the website, and which I'm about to give information about, and actually go and participate? How does this actually work online, Andrew?
Sure, I'm happy to answer that question, but I just want to go back to a couple of things that you said. Firstly, with regard to mediumship, there are, in some circles, mediumship can get a bad rap because, unfortunately, there have been numerous instances, of fakery and deceit, in that realm. And, obviously it's really, really important to use, a high degree of scrutiny, whenever dealing, with any type of medium, whether it's an evidential medium or a healing medium. But I think if you employ that kind of scrutiny, you can separate, the good from the bad for sure. And also, your comment of what you said about the science, I don't want to make this a commercial for Joe Dispenza, but Joe has said that science is the contemporary language of mysticism, and that really resonates with me. It's time to it's important to talk about mysticism and mystical experiences in a very grounded, non-fanatical way. And as much science as we can bring to that conversation, I think it helps to ground it. I know I've had a lot of experiences in my life that have happened and I didn't have an explanation for them, and so it becomes confusing. And so the more that we are able to decipher this all, through a scientific lens. I think it really helps bring it down to earth and make it more accessible to people. Anything that people would consider, miraculous or unexplainable, I mean, ultimately it does have an explanation. I mean, everything has an explanation. We just may not have found it yet. So, if we have a miraculous experience, we might call it miraculous, but, in reality, it does have an explanation. So, Joe is really kind of, in many ways, leading the way on that, but there are many people, other people as well, and I'm very, very, very much in favor of, the responsible, research into, all of this type of work, so that we can really understand as clearly as we can, really what's going on, not claim that it's something it isn't, and look at it, as openly and honestly as we possibly can. So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes. This is so refreshing, Andrew, because as you say, we have had a history as a people on the planet of mysticism being a little on the woo-woo side, a little untrustworthy. There have been charlatans. But I think where we're headed now is that this is our natural state to be aware of what's going on in the realms, all of them. And it is time that we have the groundedness and the scientific explanation where we accept this in its truth and using our discernment. So this is really exciting, really exciting what you're doing.
Yeah,
wow.
It's that, and I also think it's a move to the collective. I mean, what we're doing is called collective online healing for a reason. Everybody has a part to play in the transformation that I think, many, if not most of us, hope to see the world. And it is a collective movement. And so I think the days of, signifying one individual out or even a small group of individuals out as being, special in this way are coming to an end. And I think people are realizing more and more that it is a collective endeavor. So, I mean, everything that we're talking about here, I'm speaking to it in the context of the collective and not in terms of, of any one individual. We all have something, to give to this. So, but to go back to your question, is how we do this online. Again, to explain it in scientific terms, it would be, something that's known as quantum non-locality. Or action at a distance. And, there's a lot of information online if people want to look that up. But, I mean, just very briefly, in quantum physics, the idea of non-locality is the ability of objects to instantaneously know about each other's state even when separated by large distances. And closely related to that is action at a distance, which again in physics is a concept that an object can be moved, changed, or otherwise affected without being physically touched, as in mechanical contact by another object. So I believe that that's the mechanism at work. I'll be honest with you, we did events in New York City for several years before moving online, and people had asked us to move online for quite some time, and I'd been somewhat resistant to it. And then obviously the pandemic moved us in that direction, and the very first time we did an event, I wasn't even completely sure that it was going to work. And then we did the event, and it worked really well, just as well, if not even better. I mean, some people like the online format even better than the in-person format because they can do this work from the comfort of their own home. And so, that was about 4 months ago or so. And so, we've done about 50 or 60 events at this point because we do them several times a week. And, we just continue to refine the process, and they seem to be getting stronger and stronger. And the feedback that we continue to get, just gets better and better.
Well, this is what I think is so brilliant about your work. The first time I experienced this process, I was able to go, quite frankly, into the bedroom, lie down on the bed, get comfortable, 0 distractions, didn't even have to leave the house. And I wasn't feeling that there was anybody else in the room with me, or maybe I was in somebody's way if I was laying on the floor or looking at somebody's outfit and thinking, gee, I'd like to buy that scarf for myself. I was totally able to focus in on what was at hand for me. And I think this is the magic of using our technology. And listen to how you've just given yet another scientifically grounded and based explanation of how this works online with quantum non-locality. And I'm here to tell you, it is one of the most moving healing experiences I have had in my life. And I'm a person who has done an enormous amount of healing work with myself and with others. And of course, this is why I'm so excited to share your work on the show, and why I have a podcast that is dedicated to hope and healing, because we all need it so very much. And we need to be able to access this wonderful gift in a way that is easy for us and that we know we can trust. And Andrew, I believe that you are absolutely providing that. And as I've said, I'm just so excited to be a platform for this information to get out. And before I forget, before I go anywhere else in this interview, the website, ladies and gentlemen, the website to go find more information out about what this is collectiveonlinehealing.com. That's collectiveonlinehealing.com. Have a trip around that website. Take a look at what Andrew has put together. Get a feel for it, and see if it works for you. So, Andrew, I know we're coming to the end of our time here. Tell me, how often do you have events for people that they can access?
Yeah, so we do events generally 2 to 3 times per week. They are by donation, and if you go to the website that you mentioned, collectiveonlinehealing.com, there's a link to join our email list. There's a link to our Facebook group. We have about 1,400 people right now and growing on our Facebook group page. Also, I would definitely direct people to the frequently asked questions page and the resources page, which can give them some really good background information about what we're doing. But we generally have events 2 to 3 times per week. Everyone is welcome. The more people that participate, the stronger the experience tends to be, again, because this is collective online healing. We're happy to have anyone and everyone join us.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Andrew, I want to thank you for taking time out of your schedule today to be part of this interview. And, of course, this is a new beginning for all of us. And I'm just delighted that you've been able to be a guest today. And with that, I'm going to bid our audience farewell until next time. Check out Andrew Appel and his collectiveonlinehealing.com website. Andrew, thank you so much. Blessings to all. So long now.
The views and opinions expressed by our guests are not necessarily those of this podcast, nor is any content intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any illness of any kind, or substitute for proper professional care in this regard. We sincerely hope you have enjoyed today's show. If you're not already a subscriber, please click on the link and join our ever-growing community of goodwill. If you would like to be a guest on our show, please contact us at drhoperadio@gmail.com. That's drhoperadio@gmail.com. All of us here at the Deidre Reigel Hope and Healing Radio Show wish you a day filled with hope and joy. Till next time, namaste.